Advocates for affordable housing have recently played a part in finding common ground between renters and investor property owners. City Life Vida Urbana hopes the agreement will give other renters more protection from the pressures in Boston's housing market. To tell us about the agreement is a community organizer from the group, Christina Blanco. Also with us is a renter and tenant advocate, Edna Willrich. Thank you both very much for being with us. I'll start with Christina. Talk about who are the parties in this agreement and what does it say exactly?
Yes, Chris. Well, thank you for letting us talk about this. We're very proud, and we feel like this is really like a landmark here in Boston. We're dealing with a lot of pressures that I'm sure you've been hearing from all different types of advocates on housing and on renters in Boston, and even on homeowners that are dealing with foreclosure situations. And what we've been able to do here is that City Life Vida Urbana, representing our tenant association, and Chinese Progressive Association, representing their tenants, came to the table, hosted by Representative Liz Malia and City Councilor Tito Jackson, who were concerned about what was going on in their districts in terms of housing and displacement. And be hosted at their offices. We were able to come together with City Realty Management / City Realty Group, which is a property management and an investment company that's acquired a lot of housing, several hundred, 500-600 properties, as they testified in a city council hearing last fall that they hold in the Boston area. Many of them bought out of foreclosure, and many of them in neighborhoods with working class tenants who are very vulnerable to being displaced. And while there were many issues we wanted to come to agreement on in terms of displacement of tenants and condo owners and former homeowners, we were able to air our differences and reach agreement in one particular very important area for some of the most vulnerable tenants, and that's Section 8 renters who are low income. They have applied and received subsidy from the government based on them paying 30% of their income towards their housing costs, and a federal subsidy making up the rest up to a government approved market rent rate, fair market rent rate. And so we were able to get an agreement that's been signed in May by all parties, and that's Ms. Edna can share, has been also accepted by the housing voucher administrating agencies, which is Boston Housing Authority and Metropolitan Boston Housing Partnership, that will keep rents affordable for Section 8 tenants. The City Realty has voluntarily entered this agreement with these tenant organizing groups, my group and Chinese Progressive Association, to keep their rents to the fair market rental level, so that they're not going to be requesting rent increases that would put tenants in the position of having to try to find a way to pay more than 30% of their income towards rent and be rent burdened or be displaced.
Edna, talk about what you're hearing from these renters who depend on these subsidies.
Well, a lot of them, they're getting their rent increase more than what it should be, more than the 30%. So their landlords are asking them to move out, and it's hard for them to find a place to live since they are unable to pay that rent. This is why they have subsidized by Section 8. And it's very hard for them. And the landlords, they're moving them out so that they can move people that have the money that can pay market rent. So it's very hard for people with Section 8 to even find a place to live.
Now, this is a story we've heard about years before in neighborhoods that got gentrified. We heard about it, the South End and Jamaica Plain. But what about places like Roxbury, Grove Hall?
It's happening now, and Roxbury is really changing, especially down near Dudley. If you go in that area, you won't even recognize it from where it used to look. And they've put the new school district building there. And they're building it up and they're building new buildings, and they have high rises down there where people are not going to be able to pay for the rent. So they're going to have to move out. They're moving them out. As you see, you go there and everything is so much different than what it used to be.
Maria Christina, I can also see a kind of a vicious cycle going on here where the market pushes up the price, investor owners have to pay more money, and then they pressure the renters to pay more just to keep up with all that. Is there any way out of that, really?
Well, this is the problem that we're facing in Boston. Costs are really running into a run-up, sort of a speculative bubble, we feel, and that was exactly the problems that led to the recent foreclosure crisis that our organization has done a lot of work on. So the type of solutions that we're looking at are this type of agreement is wonderful, that City Realty has come to the table, has listened to public opinion and listened to the tenant associations and advocates, and agreed to respect the intent of the Section 8 program. Many Section 8 recipients are low-wage workers, where the folks that work at Stop and Shop, that work in the fast food industry, that don't earn enough to pay $3,000 for an apartment. They're part of our city too. They're part of our economy, and where are they going to live? And so this company has City Realty has recognized that and has been willing to make this agreement. And so we're hoping that other tenants out there are encouraged and that they bring this to their landlords so that this can become a common standard to protect the affordability of Section 8 rents. For tenants that are in market rate rent situations, they're also being priced out. We've tried to talk with City Realty about that during our negotiations, and we've brought this issue to other landlords as well, that prices are going spiraling out of control. And so we have a good example, actually, that our negotiations with City Realty have produced, in that there are, I want to say, 6 market rate tenants who have actually come to agreements where they have 4-year renewable leases. So this is a long-term contract that provides a steady income to the owner. They're going to avoid the costs of having to go through eviction costs and court costs, or of having to market and have a unit empty. So they're going to get steady income for the next 4 years, and they're going to get rent increases of 3% per year, which should keep up with inflation. And then on the other hand, the tenant has the security of knowing that their rent isn't going to be doubled overnight, that they are going to be keeping up with the increased cost of living. So they're going to agree ahead of time to yearly rent increases, but that they do have this security of having a 4-year contract. That's something that we would also like to replicate with other landlords. But so far, this precedent with Section 8 tenants is covered the largest number of tenants.
And I can imagine some owners, especially if they're not as experienced, they might think of low-income renters as a liability. But how would you tell them that they really ought to look at this differently? That there's an advantage to keeping that tenant in there.
It's an advantage for keeping a tenant in there, because if you've had them in there for a certain period of time, like my building, what happened is that we stay there, we keep the building up, we make sure everything is done properly like it should. We'd be able to help the neighborhood to grow better and to keep the building up and keep things going like it should. We'd be able to help the neighborhood grow.
Great.
And these are families who are invested in the community. They care deeply about the safety of the community. These are not people that are going to be, renting by the room and moving in and out from one year to the next. So it really is important for a landlord to look at how to keep good tenants and how to stabilize the neighborhood.
I should mention to both of you, actually, is there any way that people can check out online about your organizations and maybe get some help from them?
Well, my organization is a nonprofit organization, and like we're talking about now, people that has problems, they can call me and we sit down and we talk to them. We help them solve what problems they have. If we're unable to, we go where we know somebody else that can. We make sure that they get to the proper person.
And what's the number,
The
Edna?
number is 617-942-7568. And it's called Section 8 Tenant Association.
And Maria Christina, you've got an online presence for City Life Vida Urbana?
That's right. Anyone who wants to learn more about this agreement, see some of the supporting documents, an actual chart that shows what kind of rents landlords would be receiving under this agreement, and what the terms of the agreement are, can look at our website, CLVU for City Life, Vida Urbana.org, and we have it posted there. We have the press release, and there's information on there in a calendar of our weekly meetings. We have meetings every Wednesday evening in East Boston and every Tuesday evening in Jamaica Plain that are open to any tenants or homeowners that are facing eviction or foreclosure.
Thank you both very much, Maria Christina Blanco and Edna Willrich.